Hello everyone, Reggie Time here, and today I want to talk some more about why many Microstakes players find themselves unable to win consistently despite feeling as though they're working incredibly hard at the tables and away from the tables. A lot of what I'm going to say will hopefully resonate with many losing Microstakes regulars and losing recreational players. And they'll get something from it. Some players will dismiss this as nonsense, and some of the players will be in absolute denial and as to why they're failing, and they'll find like a plethora of other reasons for their lack of success, like this far in their own poker story. So for me, outside of like just not working hard enough on your game away from the tables, making sure you're getting the right games, practice solid game selection, making sure you're in the right game for your bankroll, and like other kind of deviations from your A game and like having a losing B game is what's probably killing your win rate. So the decisions you're making outside of the basics is what's going to be hurting you. This in turn, it just kills your enthusiasm, and often it's just like it kills your willingness to adopt a professional approach in the lower stakes games, because you just want to kind of blast your way through them as quickly as possible and get to the higher stakes games. I understand that, but it's not as simple as that. As I've often discussed before, like many players find their way to me that already have good looking stats with just very minor leaks. So like in short, they've taught themselves really well. They've learned to be a good poker player. There's no denying that. They have an A game that's probably more than likely capable of being competitive at 25-0, even on the tough sites, and possibly higher on the softer sites. These are good players, players that I can't really help with the technical side of the game, but they have other leaks because they're not winning. They're not winning at 5 and 10-0, despite having good stats and generally having a sound poker grounding. So what's going on there? What is going on? Why are these guys who are good players just still producing large losing or large break-even samples at just 5 and 10-0 when their A game is easily good enough to win it higher? And I spent many hours poring over these players' databases, just trying to find like small leaks to help them try and break out of being break-even. And I'm going to discuss, in my opinion, what one of the most common leaks is that doesn't really show up very well in databases unless you look at one particular stat, which is like multi-tabling. So I was talking to a member of my study group just the other day, a few days ago, and he's been crushing it. He's been winning like 8 big blinds 100 for quite a while now, playing 3 tables, 5 and L triple eight. And he started talking about ways to increase his volume, and his conclusion was that moving to PokerStars and playing 4 tables was going to be his plan. And it was this conversation was actually the inspiration for making this video, because I believe that this player was about to make what, in my opinion, is a very common mistake. I try not to make a habit of telling people what to do when they come to me. I like to just discuss things with people, discuss the pros and cons, and let people make their own decisions, because we're all adults when all said and done. And my coaching, mentoring, whatever you want to call it, is pretty much based around treating people like adults, letting them make their own decisions, letting them make their own mistakes, etc., and then helping them pick the bones out of the successes and the failures. But at this particular point, I felt like I had to interject, because in this case, I felt the player in question was about to tread a path that many have gone down before him, and not that many guys make it work. Some do, of course. Some guys are like proficient at going down this path, but many other guys, they struggle to make it work. So I suggested that instead of moving to a significantly tougher pool, because 5-0 PokerStars is significantly tougher than 5-0 Triple Eight, unquestionably, and at the same time increasing his volume, was, in my opinion, it's a recipe for an almost certain reduction of this player's and any other player's win rate. It just doesn't make sense to me that you would want to take something that's working really well for 8 blinds 100, which is 3 table in Triple Eight, 600 hands an hour, and then move to a game that's probably twice as tough and increase your volume by 60 to 80%. I don't think that's a good plan. I think that's effectively it's like it's a mild form of tilt that people don't understand as and don't see as being tilt. So there was a little discussion around the pros and cons of this, and his main argument was he gets bored 3-tabling. The thing with that argument of I get bored is that I don't think adding a 4th table actually ever really does much to counter the effects of boredom, because in these instances, I think in these cases, when most people reach the point that the player was talking to has reached, it's not really boredom that's a factor of like the boredom of playing only 600, 700 hands per hour isn't the factor. I don't think it's always the problem. I think the guys are misdiagnosing the problem. You often think you're bored when, in my opinion, in actual fact, you've just reached a point where you're ready to move on from your current game. But adding volume just feels like a safer option than the more progressive option of moving up does. And this is, in my opinion, it's definitely a game of tilt. It's definitely a form of tilt, sorry, not a game of tilt. It's a fear of moving up. So instead of moving up and testing yourself and perhaps fearing you might become a losing player, players find ways to increase the volume at the current limits instead. And this is super damaging to most, if not all, players' progress. Some guys, like we said earlier, can make it work at 4 tables, 1,000 hands an hour. Most guys just can't. So players end up playing more hands per hour than they're like physically capable of dealing with or mentally capable of dealing with. And they go from being like a very successful, good winning player to very quickly being pretty moderate. And then the results go downhill and they start looking for other reasons why the results have gone sour, and they start fiddling with parts of the game that were working perfectly well just a week earlier before they decided to like increase volume as their plans for poker progression. When you think about it in the cold light of day, it absolutely makes no sense. But it's a massively common problem. You've got something that's working great, you're playing your 3 tables, you win at 8 blinds 100, and then you destroy it. You just move completely away from what's been working for you by just grinding your game into the ground and increasing volume on a tougher site. It's like comparing apples and oranges. You're going from doing something that's really good and working well to just doing something that's completely alien to you, and then thinking, shit, what's gone wrong? All of a sudden I'm shit at poker. You're not shit at poker, you're just shit at treading the path that you've chosen to path. So instead of taking your game to a new level and seeing how effective it is there, you've just tried to stay in your comfort zone, but you've actually moved yourself to a place that is pretty uncomfortable for you. And this is, like we talked about earlier, this is absolutely tilt, because it's a deviation from your A game. You've had an A game that's crushing, and then you've deviated from that A game, and in many cases it's just born out of either a fear of failure or a lack of patience in like just building a roll. You see yourself winning at 8 blinds 100 over 30,000 hands, but you're saying because you're having good bankroll management, you're not quite at the limit, at the bankroll for the next limit. So instead of just continuing to grind it out and maybe taking an extra week or so to get there, you will add volume. You'll try and put a sprint finish in by adding volume, and you'll end up going backwards and actually losing money rather than building more towards your goal. So the next time, in my opinion, that you find yourself at this particular crossroads, just consider moving up to the next limit. Maybe it's slightly earlier than you'd planned financially. If you're bored, if you've got a lack of stimulation, and you've got, say, $400 at 5-L or $250 at 5-L, and you were hoping to get to 400 before you moved to 10-L, just take the shot instead. Move up and continue playing at the pace and at the rhythm that you're used to playing at, and hopefully that will like counter your lack of stimulation rather than like adding volume and trying to sprint to the finishing line, while staying within your comfort zone financially. Because in my opinion, increased volume, especially when you already have pretty good volume, is most of the time it's a very, very poor substitute for testing yourself and testing your game by moving up to a higher limit. So that's pretty much all I've got to say on this. I think it's a very common problem. People will add tables rather than increase volume, and it changes your game way too much. You lose a few points on your VPIP, use a few points in PFR, maybe you start 3-betting slightly less, because what you do is when you increase volume, you end up quite often chopping some hands out that were making you money because you're increasing volume, saying, oh, I won't play this 9-8 suited from middle position now because I've got decisions at other tables. So you end up folding hands that were previously profitable to you, and you just erode your win rate. Your win rate just erodes by adding more tables. So instead of doing that, just take your game as it is. Don't change anything, plonk it in a higher limit and see how you get on. It's not guaranteed to give you success either, but in my opinion, it's a better way to try and progress your poker career and your poker story than just mashing volume out at the same limit and then just eventually becoming ultra bored with the game. So I hope that this has given you some food for thought. It's not for everyone. Some people are going to think that adding volume is the right way to go. If you do, I'm more than happy to listen to that and take your arguments on board, because I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that this is what I've seen from many players, and many players have failed by going down this very route. So if you've got any comments or questions, please do leave them below the video or wherever you find this video, be that on Reddit or Facebook or whoever. And I'll be only too happy to read them and respond to the ones that aren't just calling me a massive dickhead or something. So I'll leave it there. If you've enjoyed the video, if it's given you some food for thought, please do hit the thumbs up. And we're back with another video or whatever really soon. Bye bye for now.